Hello and welcome to the DSP Leaders Summit on 5G Evolution. I'm Guy Daniels, Director of Content at Telecom TV. Today's theme is focused on the use of 5G for private networks. With private 5G networks now being deployed in multiple markets around the world, what are the technical and operational requirements for these types of deployment to be successful? And what does success actually look like for the enterprise user? Well, joining me now to discuss these issues is John Vickery, Principal Technology Partner, Enterprise CTIO at BT. Hello, John. Very good to see you again. Now, let's get straight to the heart of the matter. Why is the introduction of 5G-based technology igniting the private network sector?
Well, I mean that's a really good question, Guy, and I'm really happy to be here talking about this subject. This is private networks is an area that I've been focused on in BT for a couple of years now, and the demand for private wireless is really driven by industry appetite to adopt mobility across their estates and campuses. So if you see a kind of business and they want people to roam freely, they've got a maybe an office complex, then absolutely they can deploy a Wi-Fi network within their offices. They've probably got the cable in there. They've had Wi-Fi networks for years. They can upgrade those. But what about if you've got a big 1,500 acre defense base or a 2,000 acre port, or if you've got a huge construction site and you want to enable the people there to adopt mobility solutions, be that wearables, be that devices, handhelds, tablets, to be able to access information and improve productivity, you're going to have to look for another solution. And 4G, absolutely. Private LTE networks have been around for a while, and they've been growing significantly globally. I think what 5G is doing, and particularly 5G standalone private networks, which are just about to sort of start coming through in bigger volume, is the improved bandwidth and the latency improvements that are going to enable new use cases. So anything that's kind of safety, susceptible to kind of safety issues such as AGVs and where latency and the consistency of latency could impact braking distance and so could impact safety. You're really going to want to look for a 5G network for those types of use cases, but also anything that's using a lot of video, so rapid deploy CCTV, anything with kind of high definition video and analytics. If you want to connect to lots of cameras, body worn cameras, cameras in cars, cameras on drones, rapid deploy cameras where you don't need to deploy fiber to get them out where you need them. 4G network, 4G mobile network just isn't going to cut it. So that's where we're starting to see real demand for 5G with private networks.
Huge number of use cases there, potential use cases, as you explained. Now, you also mentioned 4G, which brings me on to my next point, because it seems like with every introduction of a new cellular generation, there's a push for greater use by enterprises. And it has been a tough sell to date. And also, private networks have tended for a long time to be built around their own technologies, which are perhaps maybe seen as, or were seen as, more applicable to the specific needs of these well-defined groups of users. I think, with LTE 4G, it started to break this deadlock. But what would you say are the key differences between a 4G and 5G private network deployment?
So, I mean, at the moment, depending on what you need, the standard is 5G non-standalone. So you are deploying, even with a private network, a 4G, all the 4G infrastructure you need, and you're utilizing that for the uplink, and then you're deploying a 5G network for the downlink. Now that is rapidly changing. The major vendors are starting to roll out their 5G standalone cores. So if you look at it just as a comparison of LTE versus 5G standalone, I think what you see is just a lot more capacity, specifically on the uplink. So when you start to look at industrial use cases, a lot of the demand is for broadcasting of video data on the uplink and being able to transmit a lot of data from devices through the network, whereas what the traditional consumer-based mobile networks are geared up for is a huge volume of people downloading lots of data, so being able to stream and access high definition video and watch that while they're on the move. So I think when you start to look at it in the context of private networks, we're really going to see the balance shift to wanting to send lots of video data through the network, which requires a lot more capacity than you would see on LTE on the uplink. And also there are latency benefits from deploying 5G, and especially with private networks, you've got the opportunity to deploy application servers on premise because you've got a whole core network. It's an isolated system. It means that you've got enhanced levels of reliability because you've got dedicated spectrum that that can't be contended by public use. You have all your core network in the same location as your radios, which means that you've got a lot more consistent latency, and that means you can put application servers right next to your core network in the same comms room, equipment room, and that will enable not just low latency but a consistency. So you know what latency you're going to get. A private network enables you to really set the rules of the game. So if you've got anything which needs a specific consistent latency, you've got that level of confidence that your operation is not going to be impeded by a public network where you would see varying latency depending on how the traffic is routed through the network, and you can't really control that. So that's the real value of private networks, and why 5G is going to be is going to be the main technology in the growth of private networks, in my opinion.
A lot of benefits, as you say, and value there. A lot of potential 5G private network users are no doubt used to running their own wireline networks, but can an enterprise run a private 5G network like they run a Wi-Fi network?
So there are vendor options, and there are solutions out there that have not been fully tested in the market that do offer operational access for enterprises to be able to have a go at deploying and managing the network themselves. So if they've got the level of capability, there's nothing to stop them doing it. I think the bespoke nature of private networks to meet specific vertical use cases means that you do need a level of competence and expertise, especially on the radio side. Radio planning, radio design for cellular networks is a complex area, and so in terms of being able to also manage that in life, along with the other the IT elements, so the edge compute, which will run the applications, and then the services around surveillance, environment monitoring that we're deploying. There is going to be a level of complexity where an enterprise may say, that's a bit too much for us to handle, and we are looking for a partner with that level of competence. But that's what I think that that's where a telco like BT could really come in and start to take ownership of a lot of that stuff for customers. So absolutely, there are solutions out there, but I think finding the right ecosystem of partners to help will give you a better outcome.
Okay, well, what about network architectures? We're looking at operators who are already deeply committed to virtualizing their architectures and even starting to move towards cloud-native operations. We're seeing elements of public 5G being hosted on and created for the cloud. Is it a good idea for a private 5G RAN to also be virtualized and run on a cloud platform?
I think the emergence of virtualized systems is growing. And there are a number of these systems deployed. I think from our perspective, we're thinking about what have we got fully tested, where we understand the level of reliability. We need to get we need to get this equipment in our labs and get it through thorough testing. I think private networks are really the ultimate private wireless system. This is the peak. If you want to be able to deploy the right number of radios, you've got a lot of different spectrums options open to you. So for instance, I was talking earlier about large geographical area campuses. So you think big aerospace, automotive plants, defense bases, ports. And if you want to cover that area with private wireless, there really is no other technology than cellular. So when you start getting down to that, actually, what are these applications? What are these services you're going to be running? And are any of them really business critical? So if you lose connectivity, what's the impact to your business? I know for a lot of production lines, that can be in the millions every day, every hour, even for some plants. So that level of reliability has to be, the best it can be. So I think you need to look at, who can give you that service level. And when you're looking at your vendor strategy, you really need to put either through your procurement, your tender process, what service levels you're looking for, because that's what your customers are going to need. So absolutely, there are opportunities to use new cloud native, new software vendors to run the virtual network functions. But the level of confidence and the level of confidence you can provide in that system through either your own testing or service levels from those vendors is going to be key, because you need to pass those service levels on to your customers, and obviously they're the ones that are going to make or break their satisfaction with the system. So absolutely, it's an open market at the moment, but we really need to be careful that we're not that we're not jumping too soon into untested technology, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely, John. And this leads us very nicely on to the operation of these private 5G networks and potential role of telcos here. Do these networks require specific management, analytics, and monitoring systems?
So absolutely, depending on which vendor you go with, you're going to get access to different, you're going to get different levels of access to be able to manage that. But yeah, so the operational management of private networks could be complex. So if an enterprise is looking to do that alone, they're probably going to have to be working either directly with a vendor or with a third-party system integrator. But I think the complexity around the whole in-life managed service isn't limited to the network itself. Especially these new virtualized private network systems that I've seen, do have kind of control access from an operational perspective, and an ability to reconfigure and manage the network. However, the network does nothing just on its own. This whole the whole emergence and growth in private networks is outcome driven. So our customers are looking to adopt mobility in some way that delivers a tangible business benefit, be that a productivity improvement, be that some cost reduction, improvement in safety, improvement in quality, and it might be that they're looking to deploy sensors or cameras to give them more access to data and intelligence to help them make better strategic decisions. So all of these things all of these outcomes are what is driving the growth of private networks. So when you look at a managed service model, the network is only one part of it. What are you going to do beyond the network? Because you have to put in then an application server. So what do you go with? Do you go with a hyperscaler system? Do you go with a more proprietary edge compute system? And then above that, you've got ISVs and application partners. So you really need to offer a service level end to end, unless the telco is going to be reserving themselves to being just a network developer. We really need to think far beyond the network and start thinking how we build a service wrap that is a one-stop shop for customers, whether they've got an issue or a challenge, or they want to manage service levels right across those three layers. So at the application layer, with the devices and with the the software that's running, as well with the IT systems and the edge compute platforms, and then at the network layer. And I think certainly telcos are really well placed to manage that. All three layers.
Great, good points there, John. And we're already seeing some absolutely amazing examples of trials and deployments of 5G private networks. So finally, are you optimistic about the adoption and uptake of 5G for private networks?
I really am. I'm seeing huge demand for it from various verticals. Personally, I think some of the biggest opportunities are going to be in things like transport and logistics. So I talked about ports. The operational areas of airports are going to be adopting 5G, I'm sure, 5G private networks, because they've got critical applications. They need enhanced levels of reliability for safety, etc. So certainly ports, operational areas of airports are going to see growth in demand. Defence bases, just from the sheer size of these places, and the benefits of adopting mobility for things like security, surveillance, drones, being able to equip the guys on the site with devices and wearables, as well as construction and manufacturing. So I think those are probably going to be the big verticals who are absolutely going to see a demand. I think when you start to look at the medium size market and the the smaller premises, absolutely there is going to be a repeatable 5G private network product. A number of vendors have got those at the moment, and we're starting to see growth in there. But there is always going to be the question of, do I need 5G? Do I need Wi-Fi? Because if you can deploy, a Wi-Fi system with like a Wi-Fi 6 with a guaranteed latency level, what is going to be the benefits of 5G? Some industries will absolutely see we'll see the benefits of 5G over Wi-Fi, and others it will be a grey area. So that's where you start to see a little bit of, a few questions being raised. But certainly those verticals I talked about just at the start of this answer are going to be sort of undisputedly interested in what 5G can do if they're going to want to see digital transformation across their campuses.
Excellent. Well, John, we have to end it there. Thank you very much for joining us today, and as ever, sharing your insights and views into private 5G networks. Now, if you're watching this on day 2 of our DSP Leaders Summit on 5G Evolution, then please send us any questions you have on this subject and we'll try and answer them in our live after show program later today. And do take part in our online poll. You can find it below this video player window next to the Q&A app. Don't forget to watch our roundtable discussion today on the network opportunities of private 5G. We'll be back later with the after show, and we'll have more interviews and roundtables to come tomorrow. Until then, thanks for watching and goodbye.